this is it. Like, this is the missing piece. This is my soul language. So from there, I just dove right in, did my apprenticeship, and found like a language I'd been speaking for so many lives. Like, it wasn't learning, it was just remembering.
Welcome, Divine Expander, to the Riley June Show. As your host, I am dedicated to helping you unlock your soul's gifts, consciousness, and live a life of true divine expansion. As a psychic medium, spiritual mentor, and conscious healer, I have learned through self-practice and activating thousands of women with my work what it's like to truly harness and embody your soul's gifts. If you're looking for self-mastery, life purpose, and the confidence to live life aligned, you've come to the right place. Now let's dive in and lean into your soul's truth in all ways. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another session. In this space today, I have a very special guest, Vika Bradford. She is an astrologist through and through, and she's going to be breaking down for you the power of astrology and really how it helps us to unpack and uncover ourselves. But she also so incredibly in depth goes into the power of how astrology plays a big role on our world and what 2022 is going to look like, and equally in the not so good stuff and in the expansive empowerment parts as well. I am so excited to share this episode with you. I'm going to literally just end this here and let you tune in. So, like we've been talking about, grab your paper, grab your pen, and make sure you're taking notes. And if you're not, you're on a drive, take it all in and come back to it and really take in what is relevant to you, especially the empowerment aspect. When we talk about the world and the state of that it is, and it's so easy to want to know what comes next, I really encourage you to come back to this episode and really tune into where she's talking about the empowerment piece, the rise and the revolution, because it is truly something that I hope you cling on to and take with you as we move through this year. All right, tune in, and I cannot wait to share this with you. I am so excited to have a very special guest with you here today, Vika. She is a astrological genius and really just brings such a potent touch to this world in helping you to understand who you are. So as we're in this new year, new me of 2022, I'm so excited to have you with us, Vika.
Thank you. I'm so excited to connect today and chat, and what a beautiful time to have this conversation.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, can you just give everyone kind of an insight of who you are and the work you do in this world?
Yeah, so I'm Vika Bradford, as per introduction. And what I do is I'm a karmic astrologer. So I focus on past lives, very focused on repeating patterns, wounding, and how we can find that in the chart and see like where our pain points are, where our past life wounding is sort of showing up in our lives today. I'm also very focused on rewilding and empowerment. It actually has been kind of a coming back to who I was as a child. So as a child, it was very much like the witchy energy, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer was my favorite show. And I would play potions in the garden. And, but there was like a deep pain in my childhood. I developed depression at 11 years old. There was a lot of that stuff that happened back then was me turning inward in pain and anger and frustration, and then turning myself off and just becoming this sort of robot for most of high school and into my not kind of stopped around 20 was when I really woke up. And so that knowing was always there, but I mean, the whole journey was me suppressing who I really was, just seeking so much external validation, shutting myself down, and turning into this very depressed, broken, hurt human that didn't want to be here. I was suicidal when I was 16. I was in a very, very dark place, but I put on this mask of being very sunny and light and funny and the life of the party. Meanwhile, I was drinking myself into oblivion because I didn't want to be here. And I was on antidepressants at one point, and I just completely numbed out. And then going and working jobs that were just absolutely destructive, going to university because I was told that's what you do, going to college because that's what you do, and spending thousands of dollars on things I didn't care about or didn't want to be. And then just ending up in this place of like, how did I get here? Who am I? My body's broken. My soul is broken. Like I just feel so disconnected. And then when I woke up, I started to realize like we can actually be happy. There is beauty in this world. And I was like, what is this? So I kind of went deeper into that. And that was, that awakening happened in 2012, which the astrology kind of is mind blowing for how many people woke up in 2012 when Pisces moved into Neptune, and we all kind of went, oh, hello. And I just started going deeper and deeper, and astrology was always there. My mom would give me astrology books, but she would buy me spell books. She would buy me all these things when I was young, but then again, I shut all that down. Right. And when I came into my awakening, astrology kept popping in. Like people would just give me these astrology books or this guidance into the astrology, and I would kind of ignored it for a long time, where I was like, very interesting, love it, fascinated, knew I was meant to go there, but I had to do all these other steps first, like my Reiki masters and my crystal healing and my yoga training and all these little certifications to finally get me to the place where I actually started astrology work for my business, my yoga business. And then I'm sitting and like learning astrology, and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is the missing piece. This is my soul language. So from there, I just dove right in, did my apprenticeship, and found like a language I'd been speaking for so many lives. Like it wasn't learning, it was just remembering. And so that's kind of how I got here.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Just everything about your story is really so beautifully raw and vulnerable. And what's so fascinating to me is that there comes this point in your life where, whether your thing is, to those listening, whether it's suicide or depression or anger or resentment or whatever it is that you're carrying for whatever reason that you're essentially in this space of deep rest or depression, there will come a point, if you're willing to look, where it's like, there is actually another side. And that's really where a lot of people need to get to have that awakening. They're like, whoa, when is my awakening coming? What does that mean? What does that look like? How do I get there? Okay, I want it right now. It's like you haven't gone through something to allow you to get to that point of enough curiosity, because an awakening is questioning. When you start questioning the world around you, where you're at, why you're that way, what's going on to you or externally, which now there's a plethora of mirrors to take a look at in the world. If you want to know how to get to your awakening, just ask what's going on in the world and then go from there. So I feel like at that point, it's really, you don't have to look very far anymore. But for a lot of people who, awoken before the year of even 2018, it was because of something very daunting, and arguably still there will be those moments as well for a lot of people moving forward. But it's really about the curiosity. And what I really loved about what you shared is that once you started to go through this process of, okay, I'm going to learn this and I'm going to learn this and I'm going to learn this, that eventually led you to that thing where it's like, oh, the remembering. It really resonated with me a lot in terms of my story, because I started with intuition and I was like, I just wanted to learn how to do mediumship to connect with my aunt to heal the grief that I was feeling. I just wanted to not pay for readings. So I was like, oh, well, if somebody can do something, like anyone can, it just takes time, attention, and intention. So, okay, let me try. And what I realized was that light bulb moment was like, wait, what do you mean I can do this? Not only can I actually do this, but everybody can do this. How is this so easy? Why do we not know this?
And I was never necessarily, I've always been someone who had a big mouth. So I guess that really helped me out in terms of going online and telling everybody, hey, I got this great news. But it was once I started to then develop programs in terms of coaching people in it, was where it was like, oh, this is that thing. This is that missing piece for me. And I'd really love to just backtrack for a moment and really go a little bit deeper into when Pisces became in alignment with Neptune. What do you mean by this?
Okay. Yes. Yes. So good. So when 2012 came along, Pisces shifted into Neptune. So Pisces, the planet of dreams, illusions, disillusions. I love the term that I was tapping into in an article the other day of Pisces and Neptune being the great lie. Okay. So what comes along, I get chills when I think about it. So Pisces is this energy of, when we're tapping into it on like this high level, it's this cosmic womb space. Okay. It's like, dreams and fantasy and all the things that make us feel transcendent and blissful. And we're always kind of trying to get to Pisces as humans because we want bliss, we want transcendence, we want to feel good. But on the low aspect of Neptune, we've got illusions, lies, fog, no clarity. We just kind of feel like we're in like that really foggy place where we can see nothing around us. But there is those two levels of like spirituality, and we're trying to get to God, whatever God source means to you. And then the other level is we try to get there so deeply that we escape and we can't handle being here on earth. So Pisces is that exact same energy, right? And Pisces and Neptune, they in modern astrology are the same force in the 12th house. They're all the same thing. So Neptune comes along and it shifts right into Pisces, and these energies that are the same energies essentially fuse. And so the world feels this energetic collective awakening energy of like, okay, we're feeling spirituality. We want transcendence. We want to be blissfully connected. We want to come into this one love source energy, and it's possible. But then there's all these shadows that come in while people are trying to escape. There's martyrdom. There is the savior complex. There's the safe spaces, overly safe spaces, right? We're not allowed to say anything anymore. We're not allowed to hurt anyone's feelings. That's Neptune and Pisces. We cannot approach anything without this sense of falsity because it's not safe. So this is kind of what happened and why we are in this place that we're in right now. My husband's like, it's going to be like this forever. I'm like, no, just wait till Neptune moves into Aries and just rocks everybody, right? Because that's not safe spaces. So this awakening happened. And when we talk in like the communities, we'll see this huge amount of people saying like, I woke up in 2012. And that was that moment when Neptune shifted and really turned everyone's spirituality like up. It was like, hello, we're doing this. A lot of people stayed asleep too. That's okay. And then they had that 2018, 2019, and then 2020. And now it's like, we can't look away. Like you said, those mirrors, or just look around, like your spiritual awakening is waiting for you for a reason, because 2012 didn't seem to be enough. So we do have another, I think, 5 years with this energy. And that's really what we're feeling.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was going to ask, we must still be in that that cyclical pattern then. Cause I mean, everywhere you look, it's like, don't say this, eggshells. I'm like, ugh, gross. I can't handle this anymore. So now I'm just like, I'm done. I've never been an eggshell person. I'm definitely not going to start now. When the whole George Floyd thing came out, Blackout Tuesday, I was, I think, the only person in the entire world, at least that I could find, that was like, hey guys, what are you placing a black square there for? Aren't we all supposed to be speaking up about this? What's happening? You know, are you paying attention to what you're doing? Because this doesn't make sense. And I got a lot of backlash for that. But I was like, at the same time, I was like, well, if how am I the only one saying this? Like, this is crazy. But even in that, it's like, I love when you start going into how Neptune can come into Aries and where we break those eggshells with a flat foot, because I am waiting for this. Well, I'm not even waiting for it. I'm moving in it, but just for the world to be in that, because like you were saying, you know, we have all these safe containers, and the thing with safe containers is it creates a lot of complacency, which creates a lot of problems, because you have soft people who will then create hard times, and then hard times will have to create hard people. And I feel like we're very much more in that transitional ending phase of having the rest of the soft people being bred, which is only going to naturally lead to harder times. And I feel like because a lot of people, well, thankfully are now starting to understand more about this, but don't in retrospect, is that it's only going to be a catalyst for them to have to understand that. Like I said, whether they want to look at it or not, it's going to be there in their life. And so I really love that there's hope. So guys listening, there is hope. Okay. We're going to start smashing some eggshells here within the next 5 years.
Oh yeah. And there's so much hope. Like the next 2 years are going to absolutely rock everyone, to the point where anyone who hasn't woken up is going to get the rug pulled out from underneath them. And it's going to be very intense to watch from the lens of, and like, I don't say the awakened in this, like, I'm so great, I'm so awake state. I mean it like the people who have been seeing this for a long time, the people who, when 2020 hit, were able to be like, I don't know about this, like all of that stuff, even the George Floyd stuff, the people who were able to be like, hold on, this seems like a psyop. The black squares, I don't know, maybe that's the opposite of what we should be doing. There's just so many things, right? The media manipulation that is part of that Neptune and Pisces energy, but it's also part of the nodal transits for the last 2 years. And the next 2 years are going to absolutely like just rock everyone as we sort of prepare to go through what we have for the next 2 years. And then we have another huge transit as Pluto moves into Aquarius. And then we get this Neptune moving into Aries, and just completely, it's going to be like just this energy of force coming through. Right. And I agree with you so much about the hard times and the soft people. Like, we actually do need to harden again. My husband was talking to me about something. He was listening to Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson, he's great. So I've really just kind of allowed myself to tap into his energy because someone said that I reminded them of them. And I'm like, pardon me, who is this guy? Right. And he was saying, like, essentially, we have to become monsters sometimes. We have to be angry. We have to be like these raw emotions. It doesn't mean we go and react at people or hurt people or become violent or any of those things, but it means we need to experience and see these raw emotions and then choose how we're going to carry them into the world. And we need to have a backbone and build a backbone. And this energy of Neptune and Pisces is not necessarily conducive of building a backbone. And that kind of is part of the job, right? Seeing that, having clarity, not escaping, not becoming a martyr, also not becoming this person who is completely complacent, getting that backbone in maybe the times where it's harder to get it, and then preparing for the next energy force, right? So we're going to see people just being like, where did this come from? And the people who see the great illusion, the great lie, are going to be like, we told you, we warned you.
Yeah. I feel that I think it was last year when I started digging more into kind of the astrological themes. And that's when we entered Aquarius, if I'm correct. And we really started to see, is that accurate to say?
The age of Aquarius?
Yeah.
I'm on 2 tiers on this one.
Okay.
Where it's like, mathematically, no, we haven't.
Okay.
But energetically, I think we're feeling as we approach into it. So it's a very interesting conversation in the astrology world, where half the people are like, we are there. And then half of them are like, mathematically, we're not. So I'm very much in I feel like we're going into it still. I feel like we're moving toward it still, and we're kind of on the precipice, but the energy is there and we can't deny it, especially Saturn is in Aquarius. Jupiter's been in Aquarius. We had the conjunction. We can't deny that there is so much Aquarian energy, and we are moving there. It's absolutely undeniable. So yes.
Okay. So on our way there is more accurate then. And I feel that because when when I started digging into what the age of Aquarius looks like, and it's really all about revolution. And then 2020 hit, and it was like, it just seemed like everybody took a big back step. I mean, I could see what was going on very clearly, but because of what I do naturally, so you see beyond the deception very easily. I was so confused why it really split the world. But then I also understand, oh, okay, so we're getting there because people really have to see where they're at, and they're not. So they're either going to be really deep in it and go along with it, or they're going to be on the other side where they're like, no, I don't know about this, and then kind of navigate their way through that. So that makes a lot of sense to me then, because I feel like the vision I always get is it's like this group of people, and it starts with a line right with their back to a cliff, and there's a big ocean behind them. And as more and more people wake up, essentially, there's more and more lines that form, but the more and more lines that form, the more and more force that forms. And so there's the energy of the people on the back of the line. They're at that edge, and they're getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back to essentially what could either be an opportunity to soar or an opportunity to have to push the line now forward to do something with all the pressure coming in. And so I feel like, especially in 2022, it's going to be undeniable the amount of pressure people feel in terms of what we're going to do. And I feel like for a lot of people, especially those waking up, so this is a really great conversation to have for anyone who's really just coming into this, but actually arguably more so who has already been seeing through a lot of what's happening for the last year and a half, is that you have to start understanding that this isn't about you anymore. Like none of this is about you. Now, of course, when you start awaken, it is all about you, because you're like, what the hell do I do with all this shit? Like, you mean I have to deal with my parents and this and my grandparents and lineage and all this stuff? Like, oh my gosh, like this is a can of worms I think I was trying to avoid this whole time. Now I just have words to it, but it gets easier and easier. But then you get to that point where you learn a healing modality or a tool or technique, and you apply it over time, and you start to really see the benefits of that healing, that the beauty that you talked about in the beginning from your experience. And you get to come to this point where when you start to feel really stuck as to what's next, you really have to ask yourself, what am I here to do?
I wanted to take a moment to introduce to you my favorite membership experience of all time. If you haven't already heard or been a part of the Expander membership community, this is a place where anyone on the beginning stages of their journey to finding who you are can come to learn about your energy, intuition, personal growth habits, and self-healing, with others finding themselves too. Our weekly meditations will align you with new habits, guest experts to bring you deeper into your self journey, and monthly coaching and readings with me to guide you into alignment and expansion. Come and join us and swap your Netflix habit with a community healing into self-mastery today. I can't wait to see you inside.
Because one thing that I know to be true is that you and your mission are two separate things. There's you, who's walking alongside this creation, this mission that is the ripple effect of change in the world. And a lot of us have been so conditioned to be so instantly gratified and so in that self-illusion of our world. And in the beginning, it very much is, because you got a lot to shift out and work with within your world. But then when you get to that point where you're like, okay, what's next? It's no longer about you anymore. And I feel like 2022 is really going to bring that to a lot of people's doorsteps more than they'd probably like to admit, or that is comfortable. And it's a war that we've never seen. And I feel like a lot of people, because of our programming, think, well, war's overseas. War's this person in a suit that's on, in Afghanistan. That's where they are. But arguably, it's actually just always been breeding on your own land. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I've shared so far.
I love everything you just said, because it is like so spot on. And like the conversation of it coming like to our doorstep and it being a war is like, it's so interesting how ignorant so many people are to the fact that like war doesn't have to be this physical weapon, tanks, bombing. Like it doesn't have to be that. I mean, if we see the progression of war through time, it was like face-to-face combat to shooting across a field to bombing from the sky to like, and now it is completely disconnected to the point where war can be a psychological thing, right? Like we are moving into the age of Aquarius. So there is the use of these things we're using right now to psychologically manipulate and create fear. And that is like a war in itself, right? So anyone who's in the deniance that like we are not in a spiritual war, I'm like, I don't know, I gotta go. But
Yeah.
like this is going to be brought so deeply to into people's fields in the next, it's going to be starting in January. We actually already started feeling it around the lunar eclipse with the Taurus moon in early December. So as the nodes shift, so the nodes of fate bring us into this fated collective conversation, right? And so we have these eclipses that move for about 18 months back and forth between two signs. So we're moving into Scorpio and Taurus, and Scorpio is all of the gritty shit. It's the witch energy. It's the darkness. It's the shadow. Its job is to magnetize darkness, bring it up to the surface so that we can see, heal. It's karma. It's the shadow aspects of life. It's the occult. It's the control. It's manipulation. It's oppression. Those are just lower energies of Scorpio. Scorpio is my favorite energy. So I'm just giving you the low aspects here.
Yeah.
But it is also an energy of transformation, death, rebirth, all these beautiful things. And so we have the south node of karma literally coming through with this karmic energy, and it's going to magnetize all of the deception, deceit, the dirty, gritty stuff that's been going on. It's going to bring it all to the surface. It's going to bring it literally to people's faces and say, like, can you continue to deny what you're seeing? And Neptune and Pisces might be like, yeah, you can, like, just go back into your hovel and hide. But then there's going to be this axis of this Taurus north node coming through, challenging our resources, our values, our natural disasters, these things that we have absolutely no connection to because life has become a safe space, right? We have no connection to where our food comes from. We have no connection to, like, can you name a farm near you where you could get food if like shit went wrong? Which was interesting here in BC. That just happened and the world went nuts.
Yeah.
And so as this Taurus Scorpio axis comes through, it's going to be about the reevaluation of your resources, what you actually value, your connection to the earth, your connection to how you provide for yourself, your independence, your body. Literally, body sovereignty is going to be like put on a plate for you to say, like, are you outsourcing your bodily autonomy, your resources, your food, everything? What have you outsourced? And like, it's going to be just in your face. Like it's right here. Are you looking? Are you seeing? And Neptune does bring that challenge of like we won't call them anything. Maybe we'll call them the controllers, but I don't even like that, right? Like they use astrology too. They know what they're doing. So they know that Neptune has this ability for us to look away, to bring a fog, to confuse. Like one of the energies of Neptune is to confuse. So we're kind of in this axis of like the great illusion, the confusion, and Scorpio being like, can you freaking look already? Like, can you see? And that's what we're going to feel for the next 18 months to 2 years is like, are you seeing the deceit? Are you seeing the control? Are you willing to release and shed these shadows? And the people who have been doing this work, who do their shadow work, who honor their shadows, are going to sit in this and be uncomfortable, of course, but they're going to be more so in a place of like, I'm witnessing. This is very interesting. But knowing like, the world is abundant. Like the high energy of Taurus is like, the world is literally so abundant. Like you could never run out of anything. And then the low aspects being like, ooh, like, do you have enough? Do I have enough to feel safe, to feel secure? That's going to be the biggest conversation over the next 2 years, energy force wise, where we're all just going to sit here and be like, wow, that's interesting.
I really love that you share that. Now I'm like, okay, how much faster can I get this episode out? Because there's a lot of things that you touched on that's really important. And one of them being that for those who are willing to do this shadow work, essentially, it's really going to be about harnessing the discernment and the ability to observe your experience. That was one of the things that my husband and he's a hunter gatherer type of person by nature. And so when a lot of the shit started in 2020, he was like, oh man, this is only going to get way worse. Like, okay, prepping, like, let's dig into this, gardens, osmosis system, like, let's get all this stuff. And so now that we're starting to actually see the effects of our resources being depleted, if you will, with air quotations around that, if you're listening to this, it's not always what it is, right? And so even going back to what we talked about in the beginning is like the great lie, the great illusion, the deception. And it's also, how much are you outsourcing what you're doing? And something that we learned that was very important to us last year was, how to grow just basic food. This doesn't mean you have to go and get the farmland with the plot and the tractors and start like harvesting for years in villages. This means like start with one box and build your way up, because if you don't have this skill set at this point, it is going to become an uncomfortable essential asset that you are going to eventually need. And this is one of the big questions that I get from people in my audience and community often is, what do you think is going to happen with our food? And I'm like, if you have that question now, start learning what you can do about it. Because if you're waiting for it to get bad, you're literally just putting off something that your soul is already urging you to know more about. And this could even just be not even getting the garden box. This could be just getting a book, just learning how to grow plants. Though I actually argue that garden books aren't beneficial to people because it doesn't teach you how to actually understand how they grow. It just tells you what to do. And so that's something that I've really learned to uncover in terms of learning, period, is that when you're getting told what to do, you're not actually getting told how to understand it. And if you don't understand it, you're leading off of somebody else's agenda. And that's where we see a lot of that divide in the narrative between, the nurses and doctors know best. It's like, if they've done their own understanding work, if they're just led off of what they've been told to do, they don't actually know what they're doing. Right. And that's very controversial, if you will, for whatever reason. No, I get the reason, but it's controversial because at a fundamental, even cellular level to an individual person, if you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, and this really gets into that shadow work, if you don't understand why your behaviors are the way that they are, if you don't understand why your habits are the way that they are, if you don't understand why your beliefs are the way that they are, and so on and so forth, you're working out of somebody else's narrative. And a lot of what we see in this world and what's going to transpire through this year, I believe, is going to be that mirror again for people. It's, where are you operating from somebody else's narrative, and what are you ignoring intrinsically that you have been essentially being warned about intuitively to really start diving into? Might not be gardening for everybody. Maybe it's off-gridding, maybe it's traveling, maybe it's community, right? So where are you then allowing yourself to lean into the curiosity? Curiosity is key in everything. It's literally the key that unlocks the door to all the other stuff you want to know about. So yeah, that was really beautiful said, what you shared. And I think it's really going to provide a lot of value for people in terms of how they can really start from that beginning space of questioning and starting to follow those intuitive nudges. One final question for you is, how has intuition really been a guiding force and factor in your life? Not only just in understanding your purpose and coming into it, but also in just healing and ascension ultimately?
Yeah, it's a great question. My intuition's always been very strong and very clairvoyant. I've always seen things. I have a very vivid imagination. My dreams are quite intense. My ability to see has always been my one tool. And then there is also the knowing is very, very deep as well. Those are my main ones. But really just kind of tapping into that space for so long. And at first actually it used to scare the shit out of me. I used to see these winding tunnels every night, and I'd be like, God damn, I just want to go to sleep. And this tunnel will be like, no, we're going places. And I actually used to literally scare the crap out of me till I did my Reiki, and my teacher was like, oh no, that tunnel's taking you somewhere, go with the tunnel. But really, once I started to sit into no fear around my intuition and these things that would come through, these images that would come through, these like flashes of knowing. And then eventually when it came into like messages coming in, when I started to trust these weird things that I would hear or see, where it was like, move to BC. And I'd be like, the hell, like who are, like what? Or like, quit your job, stop bartending, like go to this, do this, turn there. And it actually really started with me driving, paying attention when I was driving, or it would be like, stop. And I'd be like, why? And I'd ignore it. And then there'd be a cop or there'd be an accident now I just, when that comes through, I'll say to my husband, I'll be like, slow down, something's going to happen. And then there'll be like an accident up ahead. So it was actually like just listening and resting into like, all right, something knows what's up. And then going deeper and deeper, it really was something that opened so many doors for me into the good of life. Like when I don't listen, which I don't do that anymore, but when I used to not listen to all these weird inklings or like messages that were confusing, right? They're often confusing where you're like, I'm not going that way. And it's like, turn left. That's when things started to get really, really good in my life. And like when we moved, I was told to move to BC when I was like 23. It didn't work out because then I was told to move to Miami. It actually didn't work out for a perfect reason. I never would have met my husband. I never would have done all these great things. But then again, with my husband, I was told to move to BC again. And I was like, okay, best choice of my life. I was told to elope with him, best choice of my life. I was like all these weird things. And the minute I followed all of them, like that is how I became more and more in alignment, more joyful, more happy, more alive. And when I don't follow it, it's like, that's what brings me into negative spirals or my shadow aspects. And so intuition for me is kind of like the guiding source into how to be in joy in this life and how to feel good every single day, even though I have hard days. We all do. My world falls apart sometimes, but when I listen into it, it is what like brings me joy every single day. That's really what it is for me.
I freaking love that so much. And it's so funny to me because whenever I'm teaching people about just trusting the initial things, I'm like, start with driving. When you get told to go left, go left. Don't question it, just go left. You might not know what you're avoiding or not getting into. Just start following it. So it's so funny to me because one, the synchronicities between our worlds are very similar, as well as just like who you are as a person and how much I just resonate with who you are in the work that you do. So I'm really, really grateful for you sharing your time with all of us today and your knowledge and your wisdom. And ultimately, I hope for everyone listening that what you're really taking away from this is one, you always have a choice. And two, there's really a lot of hope in terms of the world and the direction that it's going. So Vika, I'd love for you to share with everyone how they can be a part of your world and what you have going on at this time that they can tune into with you.
Yeah. I just want to leave off with one little statement here too, as we move into this transit of the nodes. It may not turn out the way, sorry, losing my voice here. It may not turn out the way that we are being fear programmed to believe it will. I actually believe will be a great opening into moving more into Aquarian energies, which is community gardening, living in community, coming back together and like sharing space because we have been so isolated and so separated before even 2020. So I just want to leave off with like, it might not look the way we think it's going to look, where it's like food shortages and the world is ending and because I believe that is a fear tactic. But I believe the invitation into becoming more sustainable, more resourceful is actually an opening into the world we actually are creating and want to move into. So again, going in with no fear and just an open heart into learning new ways to live on the land in more honor and more sustainability. So that's what I just want to like leave off with, so that no one's in like oh my God, the world is ending thing. It's not that. It's never
Perfect.
that,
Yeah.
right? It hasn't ended yet. Like what was that? Y2K, it didn't end. We're all okay. So, and then to find me and work with me, easiest way, Instagram, Vika Bradford, TikTok, Vika Bradford. My website is vikabradford.com. I make it super easy here. And I open up readings at the start of every month. If you are looking to go into your karmic astrology, understand why you are the way you are, fall deeper in love with your I don't know, your cosmic blueprint. And I'm always doing masterclasses and workshops, and I will be opening in February. If you want to become a karmic astrologer and learn from me, I'm going to be opening up my level 1 again. And so there are so many ways you can work with me if you love just kind of learning about yourself. I would say chart readings. And if you want to actually learn how to read these crazy, wild cosmic energies, come join me on that ride.
I love it. I will make sure to have all your details linked below in the show notes so you guys can go check her out. I highly recommend you go tune into her work because she's very sassy and lovely and just brings so much value to this world. So you will be pleasantly awakened, if you will, through her work. So thank you so much for joining us. And I so look forward to connecting again.
Hey, before you go, I wanted to take a moment to just thank you so much for tuning in with me each and every week. If you weren't already aware, new episodes drop on Mondays. If you could please be so kind as to screenshot this episode, just tag me on Instagram at Riley June with your biggest takeaway, or if you know someone who could really use the insight and guidance provided to you in this session today, I would love for you to go ahead and share this directly to them. I look forward to continuing to bring you insight, guidance, and self-mastery activation tools that you can implement into your life now to truly evolve and become the divine expander that you are. All right, I cannot wait to chat with you soon. And remember, don't forget to go and find the magic in today.